started. All right, everybody. Hello and welcome to mock interview number 116, featuring a social media director in Eric Tung. My name is
Hi.
Albert, and I will be your host today, or co-host, alongside Corey of CareerShakers.com. If this is your first time of appearing on one of these mock interviews, it goes like this. Eric has sent us his resume as well as a job description, and Corey will ask interview questions and then give feedback directly. You, as the audience, have a chance to also share your questions that you may have either for the candidate or about interviewing in general. If you'd like to be somebody who gets interviewed on one of these in the future, we'd also love to have you. Go ahead and reach out to me, where you found probably me via Eventbrite, or look for my LinkedIn, which I'll share in the chat here. And you can send over your resume as well as a job description that you'd like, and we will interview you in a subsequent week. All right, without further ado, Corey, I'm going to hand it over to you, and thank you as always for conducting these.
Of course. Now, today we're going to be practicing for a social media marketing role, specifically at the director level. And we're going to go through the interview questions and answers that you can expect for a social media marketing interview. And today we're practicing a job description from ServiceNow. It looks like it's based out of Chicago, and this is a managerial position. And before we get started, we always love to first give a huge round of applause to our brave volunteers. This week is Eric Tung. So everyone, please give Eric a huge round of applause for volunteering. And we always want to give you a platform to talk to the audience and future viewers who are watching this video later on in terms of your background. So if you want to give like a quick non-interview style introduction of yourself, as well as some of the roles you're looking for, what companies, and maybe what kind of industries and locations.
Absolutely. My name's Eric Tung. You can find me on any network as Eric T. Tung, basically. I've been in the social media marketing, content marketing kind of space for over 15 years. I've worked with a lot of different industries, from software to um, like even funeral service. I've also done some energy and also some petrochem. And I'm based out of the Houston area. I'm looking for kind of hopefully some of those mid to senior level content, social, and digital marketing type roles. Most recently, I worked full time at LyondellBasell, which is a global petrochemical plastic manufacturer. And I also do a little bit of freelance on the side, such as at Civitas Residential there. Well, I guess I kind of rolled into interview style there, but
No, that's perfect. That's perfect. Great. So, and then you're open for roles based out of Houston and remote, or are you open to relocation for some cities?
I would say Houston remote, maybe Dallas Fort Worth area as well.
Okay. If anyone has any opportunities on the social media marketing side for Eric and you like his background and resume, please reach out to us directly if you want to get an introduction. But I'm also going to have his resume up during the interview today as well. And so, as Albert has mentioned, how these generally work, if this is your first time watching, I'll play the role of an interviewer slash hiring manager, and Eric will be himself pretending to practice for an upcoming interview. Every time we always ask you guys to submit both your resume and your practice job description, because then I can create customized questions based on each company, each industry, as well as each role. So the questions do change every single week. We don't have like a common question bank, and we try to do a mixture of the behavioral and hypothetical and some of the like research common style questions as well. That way we can make sure everyone gets a good sense of everything. And typically, I don't give any hints or tips unless you get totally stuck. And because this is a practice interview, if you do want to read your notes or if you want to reference other documents and read off of them, that's totally fine because this is a practice environment. And then so at the end of each question, then I'll put on my like coaching hat and then we'll provide some comments and feedback about things that Eric did well, things of areas of improvement, and I'll also point out things that you as a general audience member can take using your interviews to improve going forward as well. And if you have questions that you want us to practice, use the chat function so that way we can make sure we get all your questions answered. And it could be practice questions for Eric or questions for me or Albert that you may have about your job search or interviewing and things like that in general. All right, Eric, are you ready to get started?
Yeah, let's do this.
Okay, cool. And again, we don't have the posting for this one, so I'll try to leave this up as long as I can. We copied and pasted the job description for those of you who want to reference why I'm asking certain questions. But okay, let's get started.
All
Eric,
right.
thank you so much for applying for our ServiceNow Director Social Media Marketing role. Why should we hire you as our Director of Social Media?
Well, Corey, I've had just quite a bit of experience in social media, especially in the SaaS and B2B software space. That mostly started over a decade ago at BMC Software, where I led some of the social media accounts from the business unit side there. Um, we And then going to go to marketers, I actually supported um, quite a few different clients there as well. So we had about 7 or 8 different clients that were all in the software space, and I was in charge of all of their social media and digital communications. So one of the events that we supported while at Go to Marketers was ServiceNow's Knowledge 18 user conference, where we generated over 60 million impressions at that event. And since then, I've done a few kind of contract roles for various other software suppliers. So I've 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 had a lot of experience in the B2B software and SaaS space.
Okay, thank you. And can you tell me about your managerial experience?
Yeah, absolutely. Starting at BMC Software, I was a senior manager there of recruiting marketing. So that was kind of my second role, where I managed the team in charge of all of the digital recruiting aspects, from the website to social posts, as well as some of the different partnerships that we had that kind of flowed all of our job postings over into either other platforms or also on social media as well. So back then, you could connect the back end of your Facebook page to your applicant tracking system. So we made sure that was functioning correctly, and also tweeted all of the open roles. So we were able to really help improve that application process, and I was in charge of a small team there. At Go to Marketers, I was in charge of a team of content writers as well as designers. So anytime we had social media content we were creating, I would work with the designer and the writers to make sure that everything was synced up and in line for our client materials.
And you were their HR manager, correct? At Go-to-Marketers, you did their performance reviews and compensation
No, no, no,
planning.
no, not really. It was more of a project-based hierarchy. Yeah,
Okay. And then at BMC, you were their HR manager, though. You did their performance reviews and compensation plans and all that.
yeah, yeah.
Great. Okay, cool. So we will move to the feedback section. So anytime you get the why should we hire you, the tell me about yourself, the
Mhm.
walk me through your resume, they're all basically the same question, usually. And so they all kind of have the same answer. And the first thing that you want to do is try to be somewhere between like a minute to 2 minutes. Sometimes you can go a little bit over if you have a lot of experience.
Mhm.
But the thing that Eric did that's really good is he drew the attention towards the most relevant aspects in terms of like either industry, product, or domain. So in his case, he focused on SaaS. So he wanted to show and highlight to the hiring manager, aka me, that he has relevant industry experience from BMC and go-to-marketers. And then he also talked about a key project that would be extremely relevant and or impactful for me to know that would be relevant for the role itself in terms of social media marketing. So those are some two good things that Eric did.
Mhm.
And the answer wasn't too long, right? Because he could have easily been like, well, you should hire me because I graduated in 2005. And then after 2005, I took this first role, right, at Information Builders. And after that, I went to Engine. And then after that, I went to Spark. So you don't have to do the whole thing because you should really only focus on the most recent and relevant
Mhm.
experience as well. And so those things were very good, which everyone can make sure that you're using for your answers. Now, the other thing that you want to do is you should assume that the hiring manager slash recruiter, interviewer has already seen your resume and they like you, and that's why they've chosen to interview you. So because they've already seen your resume, you should not ideally repeat things that are
Okay.
already on there. If you do, you should be adding additional context or providing other information that maybe isn't immediately relevant
Mhm.
or obvious for maybe the viewer to have known. That way you can show that you've done other things based besides whatever is on the resume.
Mhm.
You
Okay.
also want to show how good you are at something. So maybe going a little bit in depth in terms of like how you were able to generate this 60 million impressions, because for example,
Mhm.
you did not really explain it on the resume, right? Because you probably
Yeah.
didn't want to
Yeah.
have a super long paragraph, but you should probably explain what you did to have a successful content strategy
Mhm.
specifically for ServiceNow that allowed you to achieve the 60 million impressions. And then your short story, should focus on maybe some of your unique or innovative creative ideas that are not something that any other social media marketing manager
Mhm.
would probably have said, right? Because you
Yeah.
don't want to
Yeah.
say like, well, I ran a successful content strategy leveraging Facebook, Instagram, and Google Ads, optimizing it to make sure that you get 60 million impressions, right? I'd be like, okay,
Mhm.
cool. Like you and the other 50 people I interviewed today also use Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube ads to generate impressions, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you are choosing to highlight certain things, make sure that it either is not on the resume or you give it some really good context
Mhm.
that shows why you are so good at your job. Now,
Okay.
in
Great.
Eric's case here, the one thing I do want to point out, right, is as you're drawing attention towards these roles, because they're a little bit farther down in your resume, the elephant in the room would be, okay, Eric hasn't done any relevant work for me for this industry since
Mhm.
2018. So that's one thing you're going to also want to try to proactively address if you
Mhm.
can
Mhm.
as a part of your pitch, right? So you're going to draw
Yeah.
their attention towards go-to-marketers or BMC, which shows that you have the domain expertise. Now you should probably give me a little bit about what you've done since then,
Yeah.
because I'm now thinking he didn't highlight any of this.
Mhm.
So Eric believes that everything since 2018 is not relevant for me, which is probably not true, right? Maybe you
Yeah.
learned some
Yeah. Yeah.
innovative marketing techniques or you had some really awesome achievements, but they were just not in the SaaS space.
Mhm.
Something like that, right? That way you can still give me confidence that you have relevant and recent work experience that I would care about as a hiring manager, right? Maybe
Right.
you got better managerial expertise or something, or who knows, right? Maybe you
Mhm.
expanded
Mhm.
from just focusing on US to global roles, and that's why, you left go to marketers to go to Service Corp or
Mhm.
London based. Who knows, right? But like
Mhm.
you had a little bit more time to kind of give me some of that additional context from more recent times,
Okay.
right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Cool. Any questions on the feedback?
Nothing for me. I mean, I once I had finished the initial question about why I should get hired, I then thought, well, obviously, ServiceNow is doing some amazing things in AI when it comes to, reducing like response times and improving customer service and all that's really exciting stuff. So it's definitely something that I would definitely have wanted to talk a little bit more about that I didn't.
Okay. Yeah. I'm not sure that part you may need to spend too much time on
Yeah.
because
Okay.
for this first question, they're really going to care about, okay, do you have relevant and recent experience? That's like a
Okay.
perfect fit for exactly what I need. And then also try to proactively talk about your managerial experience because that is a big part of this role as a director, is you would
Yeah.
be managing a team.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts about? So I do have more recent software social media experience, but they were contract roles, and I didn't want the resume to be too cluttered. Would you advise substituting that in for this particular application and in place of some of these other roles, or how would you incorporate those?
But I assume you did them probably in conjunction while you were working at, I don't know,
A little bit
Lyondell.
before that. I think it was like 2022 or 2022, 2023, somewhere in
So
that
it'd,
time
it'd
frame.
be between these two roles?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you had the time, yeah, I
Mm,
would like I would put that in, and then you could remove like you could make your education section shorter if you
okay.
wanted. Um,
My education section's my favorite. I get to tell people I co-wrote the first accredited undergraduate degree in social media, and I'm currently a digital marketing instructor as well. So um, I would hope that
um,
would kind of establish the thought leadership kind of angle.
do you have a summary at the top?
Yes,
I
but
would have put that here, right?
okay.
Because this is your last section. So most honestly, like as a recruiter, I like once you
Mm,
start working for more than 5 years, I don't even look here.
okay. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And
Gotcha.
also like being frank, being certified in something is not as
Mm,
good as just delivering good results, right? And at
okay.
this level, as a director,
Mm,
I'm not going to be like, well, I would have hired Eric, but he's not a certified instructor in digital marketing, so
mm,
I don't think so, right? Or vice versa, right? It's like, well, what do you think about Eric? What's the most impressive thing he's done? I don't know, but he teaches a class on social media marketing, though,
mm.
right? They much rather have someone who like crushed it at their last job doing something, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you do want to draw attention to it, put it in the summary
Okay.
because we're for sure going to take the time to read this. You don't know if I'm going to take the time to go all the way down here, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And then if you wanted to save space, you could probably condense because you have recognitions and you have honors and achievements, right?
Mm,
So maybe pick and choose
okay.
one section or the other, and then that could also give you more space if you wanted to put something between right here, right?
Mm, mm.
Um, yeah. Okay. And then I saw someone raise their hand once. We don't have the ability to come off mute if you're watching the webinar. So if you do have a question or a comment or something, use the chat function. Will the interviewer ask about interviewees' AI experience and how to handle managing a team using AI to be more productive? Depends. You'll have to see what I crafted up in terms of interview questions. Okay, next question. Eric, can you tell me about your most innovative social media marketing strategy that you came up with?
um, I would have to say at Service Corporation International, that was it's the largest funeral home and cemetery company in North America. And I was working there during COVID. So obviously that really upended all of the different processes that we had. So at the time, we were trying to figure out what the best way to incorporate a live stream into a funeral service was. This was a time when no one could travel to go to a funeral service anymore. And so you have kind of that need that people have to really connect with their family members one more time. But also from a business perspective, these are people that had prepaid funerals that were asking for refunds if they weren't going to have a funeral. So for both areas, we were trying to find a way that could incorporate a live streaming aspect to the funeral services. So I was the only person that was on the social media team in marketing at the time, and so I put together a group, kind of like a task force, really, to get together. In 2019, the company even had a social media policy that said that employees could not use social media. So we had to do a complete 180 in 30 or 60 days, go through and claim over 2,000 Facebook pages, um, and then also train a lot of these people to use Facebook Live. A lot of funeral directors, kind of the stereotypical funeral directors, a little bit older and probably, not as tech savvy as your typical maybe small business owner or whatever the case is. So we had to train those live stream champions as well as allocate out all of the permissions for each of the Facebook pages. So we wanted to make sure that each location had at least two live stream champions. So if someone was out of the office or not scheduled, that there were at least a couple different people that were able to do that. And some of these locations had, a dozen different live stream champions. So we trained them. We gave them permissions on their Facebook pages, and we also taught them how to, set up cameras for the best lighting, the best sound quality, and really give them some advice on how to have a funeral in a very difficult time. So we ended up doing about 65,000 live stream funerals through that program, and had about 25 million viewers through that live stream program.
Okay. So you came up with a Facebook Live social media marketing campaign. Or are you using the Facebook live stream in order to execute on the business end during COVID because
Mhm.
people weren't able to meet in person? I'm trying to understand the difference
Yeah,
between
yeah,
the business operations live stream usage versus your social media marketing strategy using Facebook Live.
yeah. I mean, it was more of an operational use of the platform so that we were still able to conduct funerals in a time when people weren't able to get together.
Okay, so can you give me a different example of a social media marketing strategy that you came up with that was very innovative?
Yeah, I would say, at Lyondell Basell, more recently, the previous person that was in my role really kind of restricted the number of posts that they were posting out onto LinkedIn. So at the time, we had probably 170,000 LinkedIn followers, and it was pretty restrictive as to the check boxes you had to check off to be able to qualify to post on the the global platform, basically. So I went through and created, I think, a little bit more of an engaging um, strategy when it comes to content. We were able to use targeting to really bring in kind of more of a local feel to some of the posts. So, for example, we had a very large office in Rotterdam, so they were always, uh, whether it was a local, product announcement or a nonprofit they were supporting, we were able to broadcast that, but only targeting those local people within the country or within the region. And then we also increase the amount of social posts. So in the past, they really just kind of posted one thing and one post and moved on. The new strategy was to also bring in and kind of cover different areas of a product launch or the sustainability report or an event, and really kind of feed people that information step by step. Because previously, we would, there might be a couple sentences and here, click this link to read more. I was trying to use kind of the LinkedIn algorithm a little bit more to say, if we have 5 or 6 different posts out there within the last couple weeks, LinkedIn will find the one that you're most likely to be engaged with and bring that to you. And so you're more likely to, have a little bit higher engagement on that page. So we did see a lot more engagement, 350% or so increase in engagement, and also an improvement in the engagement rate as well. So um, it was really kind of that targeting method, whether it was by geography or by industry. So we were able to post more. And then we also, on a general level, also increased the number of posts. So we were able to really improve that engagement rate.
Okay, got it. Cool. So we'll move to the feedback section here.
Okay.
The original question was, what was walk me through the most innovative social media marketing strategy that you came up with. So the first example, I think actually could have been very good because not many people probably had used um, any form of live, Facebook
Mhm.
Live, Twitch, etc. Um, to create some type of marketing strategy. So if you are able to spin that story to focus less on the operations aspect of it and
Yeah.
execute right more on the actual marketing strategy side, I think that one could also be very good because it is unique and different from what I typically hear
Mhm.
from social media marketing managers, right? But if you can't, then it's okay to go with something
Mhm.
more recent. And then, so to summarize, the innovative strategy that you came up with was to be more targeted on LinkedIn with your audiences
Mhm.
and to post more. Is that right?
I mean, yeah, I mean, yeah. But it was pretty innovative for that company. I mean, they previously were really only posting, a few times a month, and we really ramped that up to try and really get more stuff in front of more people. We ended up with like 260,000 followers after a year and a half. So it was, um, what is that, like a 50% increase in followers or so.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Okay. Okay. I think if there are other ways to phrase it,
Mm.
um, to get a better sense of the innovation or the like
Okay.
thinking outside of the box, because I know for the company it was very innovative, right? But when you compare your answer to how the other candidates will be answering the
Mhm.
question, right? My worry is if you're saying the most innovative part of my strategy is posting more and understanding my
Mhm.
target audience, when you compare that with what other candidates are saying, they may have more, they may have a different variety of
Mhm.
answers,
Mhm.
right, Eric?
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
my only concern
Yeah.
is if you word it that way, then it may not land as innovative or creative or,
Mhm.
as like an industry thought leader as you may want in an
Okay.
interview setting, right?
Okay. I might pivot that then to the sustainability report. We really honed in on like an Instagram first strategy on that, where we took each component of the sustainability report, whether it's quotes from the CEO or infographics or quick hit little bits of information, videos, and we kind of laid out the entire basically we laid out the entire or the sustainability report in a 3 by 8 or 9 grid, and so everything kind of looked like a big infographic, but you could then click on each piece of information and it would pop into either more information or a video, or it became more of an interactive component that added to the sustainability report, which is like 250 pages of text, so it just made it more engaging and more exciting.
Okay, yeah, that's pretty cool. All right.
Yeah. Yep.
Um, and then the other part of the answer that I do think is missing is you do talk about your results in terms of like the increase of users or engagement,
Mm-hmm.
right? But as someone who works in marketing, from a business perspective, the one thing they care about is then how did that translate into business impact,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that is one thing that
Yeah.
I'm seeing is kind of missing on the resume overall too, right? Is
Mm-hmm.
the so what afterwards. Because you
Okay.
increase monthly users, amazing. 650, 750% boost in engagement, amazing. What did that lead to? 60% more qualified inbound leads given to sales, therefore generating a 15% annual increase in revenue year over year from 2023 to 2024, right? Like there's always a benefit to having a marketing team that typically leads
Mm-hmm.
to either revenue or conversion rate, right? Or viable leads or brand awareness, right? Which you can also measure based on consumer reports and customer satisfaction. Who
Mm-hmm.
knows, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of end business metrics and KPIs that you can also highlight after you
Mm-hmm.
you talk about how you were able to, double the or increase LinkedIn followers by 50%, which led
Mm-hmm.
to right, us getting selected for some kind of who knows sustainability award for largest
Mm-hmm.
whatever company, or allowed us to establish ourselves as, you know, um, Lyondale became, allowed us to
Mm-hmm.
establish ourselves as a whatever premier something something company in the blank industry, giving us X award in 2023, which then also allowed us to secure 5 enterprise level customers, total
Hmm.
market, total contract value, whatever, right? Like there's always a business
Hmm.
connection
Hmm.
there that you also want to draw to your interviewer as well.
Okay.
And then for folks who are in marketing, that goes for all of you as well. Talk about your engagements, your clicks, etc., conversion rates, but then of course make sure you connect that back to your business results. Okay. Question from Albert.
Oh.
Let's say I gave you the social media director role, knowing that our leads came through many avenues, such as events, website, blog, email, etc. What are some strategies you'd execute over the next year to convince me I should keep your marketing function over others?
That's a good question. Um, so I think, one thing that I've always done with my experience is really sit down and analyze the data. There's always more information you can glean from the available leads created, what channels are coming through, as well as what's that cost per lead. So, we would really sit down and try and figure out what are those areas that are producing not only necessarily the cheapest leads, but also the best quality leads. So there's a little bit of a balance between both of those functions. Um, and most recently at Civitas, I went through and had to take a look at all of their incoming leads, where they were coming from. They had a lot of paid search. They had some word of mouth and referral, and then we also had paid and organic Facebook, LinkedIn, some content on the blog, that we were also putting in some lead generation components in as well. So we really had to sit down and figure out, where were all the leads coming from? What are those costs for each of those leads? And then also, by the end of it, like what the best converting leads ended up being as well. So they had implemented HubSpot, but they hadn't sent an email ever, and they also didn't have it connected to Meta to flow those leads directly in from Meta Business Manager into HubSpot. So I set them up with kind of um, a two campaign paid Facebook campaign, where the first component of
I'm
it
going to
was really
interject real quick,
yeah,
Eric. I'm going to interject.
yeah,
I'm gonna drive your attention back. So I'm asking, what would you do if you were here at
yeah.
ServiceNow, not what you had done for
Okay,
Civitas?
okay. So I would say, yeah, I mean, I would really dive into those numbers and see where the leads are coming from, what the most productive leads are, and then really, kind of hone in and try and tweak some of those to our favor.
Okay, so obviously you don't work here yet. We don't have any data. This is an interview.
Yeah.
So based on your experience, what have you seen to be like a few examples in each of those categories? And then let's just say they remain true for us here at ServiceNow. Then what would you do with them after the data shows you that?
I think then you need a test. So bring out your A/B tests, test various platforms, test creative, test different funnels and setups, and see, where people are coming from. Is there something that you can do that helps to optimize those conversions? Are we able to take any additional pages out of the conversion flow to improve something somewhere. So I would say increase the number of tests, just so we have even more data to look at, really, and really see what are some of the things that maybe have been attempted in the past as well, just so we don't recreate those problems. And then from there, really hone in on dial in on what works with those campaigns.
Okay, so in your experience, what are one or two examples of uh, I guess you can call them like channels that typically produce the best cost per lead because that was one of your KPIs that you wanted
Mhm.
to measure, right? So based on your experience, what are, for example, the top two channels that cur currently today are the best cost per lead?
I would say organic search is a good one. These are people that are already looking for your business or your service or your product. And typically, that is paired up with the SEO. So, for example, at Civitas, I helped to create over 90 blog posts that were all targeted to bring in more organic search. And then on each of those blog posts, we also had buttons to try and convert people, sign up for this ebook, get this advice, and kind of really bring that in as a conversion. So they're higher quality and they're, essentially free. I mean, there's costs in that content creation as well, though. And then I would also say, probably some kind of referral campaign. Word of mouth is really good. And, especially when it comes to, is there a way that we can integrate social into an advocacy campaign of some sort? A lot of times people are willing to talk about your company, whether they're customers or employees, but they just don't know what to say or they don't know what kind of creative to use. So maybe help to kind of promote a referral program of some sort, and that might help to bring in good quality, but also lower cost leads.
Got it. Good. Okay, cool. All right, so we'll go to feedback mode here. So this question is a hypothetical question, which makes it very difficult. It's a challenging question. So anytime the interviewer says, "Hey, imagine we hired you here and we asked you to do blank," or "How would you do this?" or "Hey, we have this problem currently at our company. How would you solve this?" Those are all different versions of hypothetical questions. So what they want you to do is imagine you are working there and use or talk about how you would solve it for them. Now, you can use your past experience, like what you did at Civitas, to inform your approach or how you would solve this problem, but you don't want
Mhm,
to give it but you don't want to treat it like a star story, being like at Civitas, I did this. This was the
mhm,
situation.
mhm,
This is the task. These are the actions, and then this is the result it had at Civitas, right? Because they're asking you what you would do for them, not what you
mhm,
have done in
mhm,
the past. And obviously, it's going to be a different company, even if it's the same industry, they may have
mhm,
different processes, different tools,
mhm.
different budget, right? Different channels. Who knows?
Yeah.
So make sure you're always focusing on what you would do for them. And usually the interviewer will do what I did, which is kind of redirect you back, which is totally fine. Now, the part that people do get tripped up on is kind of what happened with Eric, right? And we all know how this works in real life, right? In real life, we hire you, you look at the data, you figure out what's working, what's not working, and then you make adjustments from there. But in an interview, you don't want to stop there because then your answer will end up being like 30 seconds, right? And we all
Mhm,
know 30
mhm,
seconds is way too short to answer any interview question. So then what I did was I tried to kind of help Eric think about other ideas, right? So you can say, yes, I would join. I'll look at your data to make sure, and figure out what we can optimize, what's doing well. Key KPIs I would look for, which Eric did a very good job on, by the way, calling out key KPIs is, cost per lead. And then I forget what your second one was, but they're both
mhm,
good, right? But don't stop here. Be like, okay, obviously, I don't work here, so I'm just gonna make some. I'll just make up some stuff. Um, from my experience, best cost per lead is organic search, usually driven through blogs or company generated content that's posted online, and then referral campaigns is kind of what I've seen. So if the data also shows that these two strategies are working best for cost per lead for ServiceNow, here are some things I would do to double down here, right? So what I've
mhm.
seen work historically well in the past is option A and option B, right? I like option A over option B because blah, 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 blah. For ServiceNow, I feel like this would actually be better, right?
Mhm, mhm.
Done. That's your first half of the answer. The second half of your answer is the second KPI you mentioned. What was the second KPI besides cost per lead?
What's the conversion rate?
Conversion rate. So obviously I look at your data, but I don't work here, so let's make some stuff up. Typically, from my
Mhm.
experience, the channels that have the best conversion rate are for a SaaS-based
Um,
company, typically the best channels that have, the best conversion rate would
Yeah.
be?
Uh, online, web content,
Okay.
PPC,
Web content and
paid search.
paid search. Cool. So,
No.
whatever. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You pick those two. You pick those two, right? And then you go, okay, so if I were to double down on these as well as a part of my
Yeah.
strategy over the first year, I would want to do this and this. Here are my these are the two options, right? I like option A for ServiceNow because as a SaaS-based company, what I've seen in the industry is customers tend to blah 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 blah. Done. That should bring your answer to about 5 minutes. And what you've done here is you've shown that you're good with data because you called out two really important KPIs. You could have picked anything, but you picked these two that are the most important. Then you gave me examples of how you would actually do these things. And you told me what options are better than the other one based on certain scenarios that you may or may not know, right? But
Okay.
that's what makes you a really good candidate in these hypothetical questions is because you can show them options, right? And then you can explain to them which one would be better depending on the scenario. Because then they're like, oh, great, I can hire Eric. And if it's this, he can do it. And if it's this, he can do it, right? Versus the candidate that's like, I think organic search is the best. It has the cheapest cost per lead. I double down on the blogs. But then Eric comes in and he's like organic search and this, or blogs and this, right? And then he walks you through all these scenarios. That's the best way to kind of stand out in these hypothetical questions.
Okay. Awesome.
Okay, but yeah, that was a super tricky question. Would the director's levels decisions also include handling the security of customer client data? I do not know. I don't work in marketing. I don't know. Does your typical scope of work include the security of customer and client data, Eric?
I would say you would have access to it because a lot of times you do have access to the customer relationship management software. So you have access to it, but I don't think that
You're in
is
charge of
necessarily,
security, right? Yeah,
yeah,
that seems more like a corporate IT thing.
yeah. But usually when you're onboarding some kind of a software like that, your corporate IT people do hold a lot of weight when it comes to the purchase process. So, I was onboarding like Sprout Social or something, and they had the corporate IT people had a 300 question questionnaire on data processes and security. So
Yeah,
it's definitely a step that's done. It's not necessarily something underneath a director of marketing.
right. Okay, makes sense. Okay, we obviously have to do a team management question. So,
Okay.
Eric, what would you do if someone on your team was underperforming here at ServiceNow? And what if the obvious things to improve or change behavior do not work?
I think, one of the important things is really, uh, treat them like a person and really, find out what's kind of at the core of that. If someone's coming in late to meetings, if they're not performing, if they're not getting their work done, do they have everything that they need? Are there tools or, is there any other way that you can make something more efficient? A lot of times, if there's not necessarily a good process for tracking tasks, you can get lost because you spend a lot of time, going through your inbox and trying to figure out what kind of tasks you have to do next. So, is it related to that? Is there some kind of task management platform like an Asana or something like that where you can make sure that it's a little bit, more direct as to here are the tasks you need to finish today. If it's something personal, try and find out if there's something that the maybe the company offers to support them as well. I've had some very close friends lose parents in the last 3 months, and it really devastated them. A lot of times, the company probably offers some sort of a oh, what do they call it? The like a free counseling service that they help to support. Is that something that they need access to, or are they even aware of that? So I would say, really try and focus in on what's the root cause of that slip in their production and see if that's something that you can help them get through. I think a lot of times, um, managers will come in and start, writing people up and putting them on action plans or whatever the case is. I think the first step is really just to understand what's going on. Everyone has issues, everyone has lives outside of work, and really try and find a way that you can help this person do their job better.
So in that scenario, let's say there was a person who was underperforming because they weren't able to complete, or they do not complete enough of their assigned responsibilities and projects, and you help them use our software where we do use Asana. So
Mhm.
you have them start to better utilize Asana. Maybe you train them on how to use Asana, and then how long do you give them to see if the behavior changes? And if it doesn't change within that period, what is your next step?
I think you also you can take a look at just how not only through Asana how tasks are kind of being distributed, but also is there something from a meeting perspective that you could do to also facilitate that? So, are there maybe regular, like a daily stand up that might be helpful? Are there roadblocks that people are hitting that that other people on the team aren't aware of? So maybe they're not as likely to speak up about it. So I would give them maybe, a couple weeks, a few weeks to try and figure out how um, to really change that around or, improve their productivity. And then from there, if I would probably also work with, are you giving me clues here?
I was trying to see if they had something on their website about like, oh, here, leadership maybe. Some companies have like corporate values. I know Amazon has literal leadership principles. I don't know if this company does though. But anyways, continue.
Yeah, I mean, I would say basically, um, see what you can do to help them too. Ask them questions. See if there's something that they need. Um, and sometimes it's just not a good fit, but in a lot of cases, by improving some kind of process or helping to identify some kind of cause of issues, you can really um, help them produce better.
Okay. Oh, here. I think I
Nurturing
found
growth,
it. There we go.
collective
Uh,
triumph.
winning as a team. You're already covering the nurturing growth part, right, of being a manager.
Mm-hmm.
Customer-centric collaboration, that's not relevant here. Magic of unity, kind of the same as the last one. I don't know who wrote these. Not a great job being creative. Okay, so yeah, and I know I distracted Eric a bit with my search here, but in general, for like leadership, behavioral interviews, everyone should check the company website, look at their mission statement,
Mm-hmm.
their values, try to incorporate that where you can. You don't want to make it super obvious, right? You don't want to be like, well, as a manager, if you were underperforming, I want to make sure that we have a path to a collective triumph. Because then they'd be like, number one, who talks like that? And number two, it's like, okay, it's kind of corny. But you should use it to inform if you had two options, right, in your mind of like, okay, in this weird scenario, what would I do with this person that's underperforming? You should lean towards this one, right, which aligns more with Salesforce or sorry, ServiceNow's company values, right, if possible. Same thing. If you're asked a behavioral question, tell me about a time where you demonstrated being a good manager with someone on your team. You should obviously pick an example that highlights as many of magic of unity, customer-centric collaboration, nurturing growth, and path to a collective triumph as possible, which they'll pick up on without you having to say it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so for these managerial questions, I asked it as a hypothetical just to make it a little bit harder. If you have a behavior one, it's pretty easy. Everyone chooses the same example. They were underperforming. You talked to them, you figured out what was wrong, and then you coached them up, and then they did really good. So that's why most of the time for managerial questions, they don't ask you behavioral ones because we get the
Mhm.
same story every single time. So the challenge here is making sure that your approach is a little bit unique and different than what every other candidate is going to be saying, right? And so the
Mhm.
obvious
Mhm.
thing is talk to them, figure out what's going on, figure out the root cause of their underperformance. And then Eric did a good job. He gave two examples, right? They may be underperforming because they're just not organized. And so having them use Asana or like a task management software to get them on track, or they may be underperforming because there's things happening in their personal life, like they may have some family, we'll call them issues potentially,
Mhm. Mhm.
death in the family, etc. And then he would, coach them to use the company's benefits as it relates to counseling services and
Mhm.
bereavement leave, and then making sure that the team is staffed up enough to support that person's projects and deliverables while that person is dealing with things in their personal life, right? So it's good in a hypothetical scenario to give two different imaginary scenarios and then how you would solve them because it shows that Eric has handled both of those situations before and he's a flexible, fungible manager. But then just be prepared for like those follow-up questions, which is like, okay, what if that doesn't work? Right, which is the
Mhm.
obvious thing. And
Mhm.
then of course everyone's going to say, well, if it doesn't work, I put him on a PIP, right? Because
Yeah.
that's usually what everyone says. So
Mhm.
if you can try to come up with something outside of that, if possible, just so you kind of stand out as a manager from the rest. But
Mhm.
these questions are a little bit harder to kind of stand out because everyone's going to have the same solution, which is put them on a PIP if it doesn't work, which is the
Mhm.
obvious answer, right? So that's where like these values and things kind of help inform you or give you hints or clues as to what you may want to think about doing, right? Like, oh, maybe if I make them feel more like they're part of a team, and bring the team closer together. This shows them that they're not just working to execute on their own parts of the project, but they're actually helping a
Mhm.
broader organization, creating that sense of unity, right? And then you can kind of build on that or something.
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's try and speed run one more question.
Okay.
Uh, In your experience, how do you determine the right balance of organic versus influencer social promotional strategies?
I think so. For something like ServiceNow, it's a highly technical product. A lot of the nuance of, for example, one release to another probably uh, won't be carried by an influencer, right? Some of your super um, technical bloggers or something would probably understand some of the material that you're presenting, but a typical influencer probably wouldn't be the best. So I would say it's on a campaign by campaign basis. Is there something, you know, uh, kind of overall on a larger scale that that you can convey through an influencer program or through an influencer directly that might be the launch of a new module or a new partnership. So I would say, you want to uh, take the type of campaign it is and then gauge that and measure that to see um, what the best channels might be. Um, there, you could also have kind of at a couple of different former employers, we helped to create kind of an advocacy program where we helped to kind of produce the material that helped people kind of share that information. So it was kind of like a guided influencer program where some of the content that we had, we would produce, some sort of uh, copy and some creative and kind of send it out to people that were friends of the company that would share that. And then we were able to kind of increase the number of impressions, engagements, and ultimately web traffic based on from those programs. But generally on a highly technical kind of product, you probably don't want to just send someone a press release and have them come up with some influencer content, you probably want to guide them as much as you can.
Okay. Um, and I am not super familiar in this space, but it looks like they use influencers for internal slash external events,
That would be a
announcements,
good, yeah.
and strategic partnerships, I guess. Um,
So
that's why I came
that's
up with this
actually
question.
what we did at Go-To-Marketers was we were a media company attending the conference
Uh-huh.
and interviewing some of the speakers and attendees on their thoughts, and then packaging that up into like 15-minute videos, and then sharing that. So that's definitely a good concept when it comes to kind of capturing the buzz on the conference floor, some of the announcements, what people are talking about. So it helps to really get that information out to people who weren't there at the event.
Right, right. Yeah. Okay. And then I guess I mean, my assumption is influencer is not like the traditional influencer in these
Yeah,
like
yeah.
highly technical like B2B SaaS spaces, right? So the influencer though could be like it's like the COO of Apple or whatever is at your
Mm-hmm.
conference or whatever, and then you have like they're your influencer, right? They're like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Apple, we love ServiceNow. We've been a customer since 2020 before they even incorporated all these new AI features. And now I'm here
Mm-hmm.
at the whatever ServiceNow annual sales kickoff, and I was so excited about X, Y, and Z features. You know, Apple customers rave about our customer service and how solid it is, and it's only going to get better with the usage of these new AI features from ServiceNow this year or something, right? They're now your like influencer, and then how you leverage that for, LinkedIn or whatever it may be, thought leadership, etc. I assume there's some kind of strategy that you all do at at that level.
Mm-hmm.
Um, would also be something you could talk about. But okay, cool. Everyone, let's give Eric a huge round of applause. This was amazing. He was serving for your entertainment and educational purposes. And of course, as Albert said, if you guys want to volunteer, contact me or him. And then we do have other videos besides social media marketing if you want to look at previous mock interviews that we've done both on my YouTube channel and then also on Albert's YouTube channel as well. So thanks, Eric.
All
All
right.
right. Thanks, everyone.